A former state authority head tried to score kickbacks as part of a disastrous, predatory program meant to help disadvantaged people set up cannabis shops, a new lawsuit alleges. That's right. A former state authority head tried to score some kickbacks as part of a disastrous, predatory program meant to help disadvantaged people set up cannabis shops, a new lawsuit alleges. Reuben McDaniel, the ex-chief of the Dormitory Authority of the state of New York, rejected a multi-million-dollar deal to install security cameras in cannabis dispensaries last year because he and his cronies were upset they wouldn't be able to siphon off enough taxpayer money from the agreement, an Illinois-based firm claims in its Manhattan Supreme Court lawsuit. In a quote, Dancy agents determined through internal correspondence that they were unsatisfied with the potential profits that they would be entitled to from the illegal cut of the New York projects that they were attempting to negotiate, the lawsuit reads. The plaintiffs, America Safe Cities, and its CEO Thomas Boiling contended in court documents that McDaniels and Dancy agents said the firm would receive a $100 million no-bid contract to install surveillance systems at more than 300 cannabis dispensaries, as well as SUNY and CUNY campuses. McDaniel, a former Governor Andrew Cuomo appointee, quietly left the agency last year, and the authority is the state's Facilities, Finance, and Construction Authority, according to its LinkedIn page, and the lawsuit is only the latest black eye for it. Dancy and Governor Kathy Hochul had previously been criticized for signing off on a fundraising agreement with a private equity firm to help provide financing for people convicted of drug offenses to set up cannabis dispensaries throughout the state's Cannabis Social Equity Fund, and the fund ended up charging prospective attendees exorbitantly high, arguably predatory interest rates on loans backed by the state based on massively overinflated projections on how much income they would generate. According to the bombshell reporting from the city, Hochul's office ignored red flags raised by her own cannabis regulatory agency about the Dancy Fund. The new lawsuit also targets Emery Alexander, a consultant who connected McDaniel and Boiling as early as 2021 with over a year before the equity fund's first dispensary would even open, you guys. It alleges that Alexander worked as McDaniel's liaison and designated agent between 2021 and 2023. At the same time, a LinkedIn page appearing to belong to Alexander lists himself as president of American Safe Cities for 8 months beginning in October of 2022. It's unclear exactly what role Alexander may have played in the alleged scheme, but Danzy does not comment on pending litigation, a Danzy rep wrote in a response to questions from the Post. And Boiling did not respond to requests for comment either. And Alexander could not be reached for comment. And a rep for the State Inspector General's office said he won't confirm or deny the existence of any investigations, as it is the office's protocol. McDaniel quietly stepped down last year and has since taken over as managing director at the Alice L. Walton Foundation, and the foundation did not respond to a query from the Post either, you guys. Well, at least these guys are taking a page out of the Pot Brothers at Law and knowing how to shut the F up. But nonetheless, this whole thing stinks and reeks of corruption in my mind, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. This is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do y'all think about this?
I think that was a hell of a recovery, Jason. Good story.
Thank you.
You just got excited about that one. That's a big one.
Well, I mean, New York is the gift that keeps on giving.
Corruption from a New York real estate developer probably brought back some PTSD, huh, Jason?
Oh, I see what you did there, Sohum. That was cute.
Artificially inflating projected profits to get favorable terms from
yeah, but but they were gonna be siphoning all this money from social equity applicants and forcing them to pay these exorbitantly high interest rates of the state's money at that.
Something similar happened here in Los Angeles, and I believe that gentleman is now the head of our airport commission. Pay attention to what's going on in your cities, guys. Like, the social equity programs have time after time after time been taken advantage of and been used as like a siphon fund for all these corrupt people and these, you know, upper middle class, yada you, whatever, shouldn't be here kind of folks. So, like, stop stealing from social equity. It's not that fucking hard. And the cities should care. If they don't care about the programs and the people they're supposed to protect, then they should give a fuck fuck about their own money being stolen, because it is government funds that are being siphoned off.
Yeah, I mean, here's what comes up for me.
Oh
right?
boy, here we go.
When they announced this they announced this $100 million fund, and the first thing I said is, where's the money and where is it coming from? And along the way, they suffered from a pronounced lack of transparency, which can probably not be entirely attributed to Reuben McDaniels or whatever this gentleman's name is. And with this alleged approach to how this opportunity, this funding event was handled, as a politician or a policymaker or somebody who's installed in their office, I don't know whether he gets a promotion and this is business as usual, or he gets his fingernails removed one at a time and ends up in prison.
Ooh, that hurts.
What I would like to see is omnidirectional accountability. And so as long as they're banging the drum about the bodegas and all the other stuff, let's make sure that we are also taking a few scalps along the way and making sure that politicians are held accountable. If this is true, I'm not surprised, because this program and the people who've been responsible for executing the rollout have been incompetent at best and potentially compromised at worst. I think that I'd like to make sure this plays out in a court and not in the court of public opinion. But it's hard for me not to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire.
Rico, you know what? I think I just cracked the whole case, Rico. I think we just cracked the whole case with this story. So basically, Chris Webber was the one that was supposed to provide the money for this fund. And I bet you that when Chris Webber's people were doing the due diligence and getting the money ready for this whole fund, they saw all these predatory deals and then they backed out. And that's the reason that this fund was never funded in the first place. And they were just trying to make Chris Webber be the scapegoat for their utter failures because he didn't put up the cash.
Well, if it was never funded, does that even qualify as a fund?
Well, they said they filed the paperwork for it.
It identifies as a fund. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Never mind if there's any money involved.
I see what you did there. I like that. I like that, Yarrow. That was good.
It sounds like it's an account. It's not a fund.
Well, we are going over the account of what this may have looked like. But the thing that was really challenging to us, because we were running at retail locations at this point in New York, is the first thing we said is like, okay, how much money is there? Okay, how much money is going to each of these doors? Okay, so now you're telling us that you're going to raise money, but then you're going to give the money to the recipients, but then the recipients have to spend it on real estate that is owned by New York. So you're giving us money to spend money with you. And then it was, okay, well, no, you're not going to have to spend this money on real estate that's owned by New York, but you're going to have to spend it on real estate where we allocate this money to you. And by the way, we're going to determine things like the signage and all these other things. And then it was, okay, we're not going to do that, but you're going to have to spend it with our approved vendor list. And so along the way with all of these changing, shifting iterations, there was always these massive strings attached. It wasn't like block grant funding, and there wasn't enough flexibility in the proposed program details to allow entrepreneurs to make better choices, not so great choices, fail. First, it was going to be a grant, then it was going to be a loan. And every single time the story changes, and maybe it's just because I'm raising teenagers, but every single time the story changes, I don't believe the person who's talking. Because they never, ever, ever stayed on script, and they never, ever, ever said one thing and stuck with it.
I'll tell you what. I hope that the New Jersey Cannabis Board tweets something about this story.
It shows the need to have public, either a more robust public-private relationship around funding mechanisms to support this industry, or we need to fall back on the private businesses that are already lending unsecured funds into the space. And sure, they're making their interest rate, but compared with what these buffoons were trying to do, interest is not inherently a nefarious pursuit. And so there are very limited non-secured funding options in the space. We need to see more of that. And if government can't solve it, private enterprise can.
Or
yeah,
burn it down.
Oh God! What you have any thoughts on this, Dale?
Not on National Clam Day. You don't burn anything on Clam Day.
Yes, I do.
It's also Chocolate Wafer Day. You know what I'm saying?
It's just difficult to watch our industry being a cash cow for so many crooks. They're everywhere. And I've been in the presence of politicians that are asking for shit that they know they're not supposed to get. And it's just hard. And that bucket, they say, oh, the bucket has some leaks in it, so take money out to people. You know, in this case, we get raped to fill the bucket, and then it's a sieve, and it goes out to a lot of people. And the industry is the one that's suffering here. And it's just disturbing to watch how much we are targeted by nefarious people who have a smile on their face and want to shake your hand, and what they really have is some lube and want to bend you over.
Yes, they do. In response to Jenny Beth's comment earlier, when she said, like, how hard is it not to rip off social equity applicants? Like, I would actually argue it seems like it's harder not to, because we're seeing that happen on every level in every state that tries to apply social equity.
That's right.
I would love to set up an auditing system and go through these programs, because God knows I've worked with enough of these applicants and got them out of these predatory agreements. I would like to just somebody reach out to me. Let me come audit your jurisdiction. Fine. Let me look at these contracts. I want to see.
I have been the recipient of many six-figure rounds of grant funding as a verified social equity applicant. And every single time somebody propositions me with something that doesn't pass a sniff test, and every single time I say 3 to 5 years from now, there is going to be a massive audit of these programs. Somebody's head is going to roll. Somebody's going to go to jail, and it's not going to be me.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. These contracts require you to submit certain documents, right? So if you're submitting something and you are saying that you're not in day-to-day control of this business, you're just, you know, giving them some money and a small minority partner, and you're allowing all the things that the law says that should be happening to happen, and you're not doing that, it's called fraud. There's a fucking word for that. Your head should roll, and you should go to jail for it. You should at least have to pay these people back, give them back their business interests, and get the fuck out of the industry you don't belong in.
I don't know. The leadership that this country has, I don't know if that's real.
Well, that's because Joe Biden's in the president's office. That's why.
No, I'm talking about your boy Trump.
Example. He doesn't set a good
I'm talking about your boy Trump. There's zero accountability anymore. There is no such thing as law.
Trump is the most accountable person because he's been persecuted more than anybody else. So you can't
persecuted?
Really. Yeah, persecuted.
You're confusing prosecuted and persecuted.
Yeah,
persecuted and prosecuted. Both of those things. But we're not going to go into all that.
I just think it's sad by saying
social equity, though, real
a
quick.
lot of these equity.
Go ahead, Sohum.
Go, Sohum. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I think it's something we've discussed on this show, and I've said repeatedly. From my experience, from what I've seen, the places that achieve true equity and access to licenses for people.
Whoa, what happened to you, Sohum? Where'd you go?
I think I got muted.
There we go.
Know, that was weird.
He was persecuted.
I know.
Jake Tapper got you.
Hunter Biden.
Trying to silence my
married, have you?
But no, I was saying that I think places like Oklahoma and New Mexico that have reduced their application fees, done away with license caps. Well, Oklahoma is starting to walk that back, but during their initial wave of licensing, they've done more for creating equitable access to licenses than places that create these bulky $100 million social equity program, which really are just opportunities for already disadvantaged people to be taken more advantage of. So I think I think the more social equity programs that we see, the more we see why that is not the solution to helping people get access to the industry who have been harmed by the war on drugs.
That's
yeah,
right.
I mean, I think a lot of these social equity deals are kind of like Joe Biden's tan. It only is on the face.
Oh, boy.